Hey everyone, what's going on? Vega here from Serpent Tech, and in this video we're going to be actually assembling a mining rig. So I'm going to show you how to build a mining rig, but from my POV perspective. Now unfortunately I had to build this mining rig ahead of time, so we're actually watching footage that I pre-recorded. I'm going to be jumping around, but I want to explain some of the processes I take. And right now, if I hit play, we're going to be trying to migrate everything from this AMD rig to the 8 GPU frame. So we're going from a 6 GPU frame to an 8 GPU frame. And the reason I'm doing that is because the ultimate goal is to move everything into one corner, right? So one corner of the house where I have a 240 line and everything connected using the Asus B250 Mining Expert motherboard, Patriot memory, and ADATA SU635, one of my favorite hard drives or SSDs for a mining rig. So we just need to get everything consolidated to that corner. I need to check the paste on this because Red Panda Mining pretty much sent it to me. And even though it did have thermal paste, I still replaced it just to make sure that everything was good to go. Alright, so here we are. Thermal paste applied. Got the memory sticks added and everything. It's just an 8 gig kit, 2x4 gigs, 266 megahertz. Nothing too special. You could go with 2400, 2133, does not matter. So we just need to go and check the placement of the motherboard on the rig itself. You can see that it already has standoffs and everything in there. So we're just doing a test fit. We're not mounting anything just yet. We're doing a test fit. One of the reasons I like to use this or do this ahead of time is because I want to apply something below it to protect the back side of the motherboard, make sure that none of those connections short or touch any metal on metal, anything like that. So let me show you what I actually do to actually put cardboard behind it. You can use the motherboard box, but in this case, I always like to keep my hardware boxes for all my components. Let me show you what I actually used. So here I found a FedEx package. It's a paperback package, and I actually used this. I cut it all the way around to fit behind the motherboard. And the only thing we need to do is poke out some holes or mark some holes for the screws to go off, go through and connect to the standoff. That's what I'm using the pencil for right now. Want to hold it as steady as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. It's a mining rig, not the most beautiful gaming PC you can build, but mark the holes. You could even not mark it, just use the screws to go through it, but I like to mark it, give it a clean edge, and then that's what we're going to use to protect the backside of the motherboard while connecting it and mounting it, making sure nothing shorts out on the backside of the motherboard to the rig, case, frame, whatever you're using, okay? Now that I have everything kind of in the right place, I give it a little darker so I can see exactly where I marked everything, and that's where I'm going to poke the screws through. You can use whatever you want, a knife, small knife, maybe a blade of some type. I just use the screwdriver kit from iFixit to just poke a hole through. And the biggest thing before you go mounting anything that I want to say is you get everything placed just right, but make sure you got the right screws. There's different thread counts. It's coarse. There's fine. There's the height of the screws matter because these standoffs are taller than standard. But I got to flip this bar. So that's what I'm going to start working on right now. Is the bar on the Nvidia system allows me to quickly access the risers, but not all of the GPUs are long enough, which is why you saw some painter sticks holding the 1660 Supers and TI. So we're going to flip the bar. I need to get a bigger Allen key because I want the GPUs to actually be supported, especially the smaller ones, with the AMD cards that I'm about to put on this system. So I switch over, go get the Allen key, and then come back. So as you can see, just basically the kit comes with the hardware. I lost it, I don't know where it's at. So I got the Allen key, a little bit tough, so just had to break it because it's been sitting there ever since Savage Mine brought it to me and I haven't really done anything. So it was a little bit rusted in. Break it loose, turn it around. You might have a different frame, you might be using a shelf, you might be using whatever you got, but you just gotta make sure that you are protecting your components. So if you are putting the motherboard on a shelf, Metal on metal is not good. Try to have some type of protective cover for it, maybe a cardboard box, whatever it may be. Make sure it's mounted securely. In this case, this is the Vada frame, which is kind of the standard, and yes, I'm wearing flip-flops with socks, shut up, is the standard for the mining community. And even though Vada doesn't make the frames anymore, they can be found through various partners or companies out there. I think Kingwin makes them too. So anyways, flipping the bar, you know what that is. Nothing too crazy. And now that it's flipped the right way, or the way that I want it, I don't have to worry about the GPUs not being able to reach the bar in the back and it kind of hanging. But the only downside to that is obviously the risers are not easily accessible. I will have to, take off the GPU, swap out the riser, put the GPU back on, which is not a big deal in this particular case. That's an easy fix. So now with everything in its right place, I take a GPU that I just need for mock-up. Yes, the 1070 just been sitting on the shelf. It still is sitting on the shelf. I'm sorry to anybody out there that can use a GPU in their gaming system. Make sure you stay subscribed to the channel in case there is any giveaways or anything like that in the future. But I'm using this to mock up where I need to raise that bar in the front there. As you can see, I need to loosen it up, so I'm probably going to need Allen keys because the iFixit kit doesn't give me enough leverage. So with the Allen key, I'm able to loosen it up. This Vada frame can be very picky because the way the mounting hardware works, there's a little nut in the background there that as you twist or tighten, it locks into place. I just check placement, move it to where I want it to be, and then tighten the bolt or nut back up, and then lock it in. So I do that for both sides. Very simple, very easy to do. I loosen up all the screws for where the GPUs will mount, just so they can slide in real quick, because much of what I'm doing is one-handed operation, especially when I'm trying to tighten something and hold the GPU in the right place. But it's all about making sure that the GPU's comfortable, it's not slanted, it's not leaning too far back, it's not leaning too far forward. There's no chance for it to bend the I/O shield. That's the biggest thing. You don't want it to bend the I/O shield. So this is pretty much it. Let's switch on over to what the next step is once you have the bar and everything secure or the way you want it. Next thing is mounting the hard drive. Of course, this Vada frame comes with its own hardware. My son's playing some music and the TV's in the background there, so I apologize for that. Basically, just get it in the spot that I want, and I can go ahead and lock it in place. You don't really have to secure your hardware, your hard drive or SSD, but I do anyways on this case just so it doesn't move, especially since I'm stacking these up. Alright, so basically now that frame's pretty much ready to go, I got the GPU I/O bracket at the right level. It's the following day. I'm shutting down this system because I want to minimize downtime. If you're migrating systems, you want to minimize downtime as much as possible, but you may just be building a frame where I'm just migrating. It's roughly the same concept, right? You got all the hardware. I need to move it from one to the other. That's exactly what I'm doing. So I'm just shutting down the system, making sure everything's powered off, and then we're going to start disconnecting the GPUs and moving it on over. Yes, I'm wearing socks again. It's Florida. I don't have an ESD bracelet on. I do have one. Gamers Nexus mod mats right there towards the left of the camera if I tilted my head up, but don't need it in this case. It's perfectly fine. I know I'm on carpet. I know I'm wearing socks. Everything's turned off, and because it's not as crazy as it is over in the west coast of the USA, I am just fine, and I don't really worry about static electricity. But when I am concerned working in a data center environment or anything enterprise or corporate, I definitely have an ESD bracelet. In this case, at my home, I am risking electric static shock. I just know that one, I'm discharged, and two, I don't have to worry about it as much as those on the west coast. So this is just pretty much me disconnecting all of the GPUs from its proponent connections, power, all that stuff, and then moving on over. Let's just skip up to that point because I know that's what y'all want to see. So installing the Gigabyte card and just grabbing everything one by one and moving it over. Installing these GPUs on these particular frames are very easy. The only inconvenience is obviously every connector is a little bit different. So the one that you see right now that's in my hand is a PowerColor, and the way the connector I routed it, unfortunately, is it's going around the bar where it's making it hard for me to get everything out. Whereas the other ones from deep in the mines, the 6-pin to dual 8-pin connectors, don't have that loop, right? So I'm swapping out this one you saw a second ago there, GPUrisers.com. They got some pretty good quality risers. I'm actually just trying out the ones that Red Panda sent me with the Asus B250 Mining Expert motherboard, and they actually look really cool, and I like the slot armor. So I have a mix of risers. You can see GPU risers there on the left, the far left, with the 6600 XT, and then a different 009B riser. These risers and versions don't really matter, but they do matter. You can see, of course, I also put on shoes for anybody that's freaking out because of static electricity. So yeah, there you go. But as far as risers, I had to bend the IO shield a little bit there. I was getting kind of bent. But basically, risers, I wouldn't worry too much about. Anything 009C or above is perfectly fine. Like the ones on Amazon are pretty good. This is the ASRock Challenger. Frankenstein is what I call it, because I had to literally replace the cooler, the stock cooler and stock fans, because one of the fans died and the other one was making a noise, so it was on its way to die out. But I basically just Frankensteined a 120 mil fan onto it. I'm moving both of these at the same time. Of course, getting caught up on some PCIe cables, stuff like that. Nothing that you're going to have to deal with if you're building your system fresh. But of course, that 120 mil fan needs to be powered by something, which is why I got a little splitter. I want to leave the space in the middle open because the end game is that the 6800 is going to come over here as well. So the 6800, because it's so long, once you mount the fans on there, I do not want it towards the far edge because the fans wouldn't move. They're not as flexible towards the edges. So that middle spot I just skipped because I do plan on putting the 6800 over here. And right now, of course, at time of filming, it is in the AMD system. It's just not in here as you're watching this. So basically, we're just moving all the GPUs over. We're securing it to the I/O bar that you see there. And then it's just a matter of connecting everything all up. Of course, it could have used a little bit of dusting before I did all this. But again, uptime is very important. So I'm just trying to make sure that I get everything squared away as fast as possible. Now I'm looking for the 4-pin connector here for this splitter that I have, and past me doesn't know where it is, but future me knows it's all the way up here towards the top. So I eventually find it right there by the CPU and plug it in. Of course, with the ZSX Breakout Board from Parallel Miner, you can connect all your fans directly to the board. They will run at 100%. But you don't need a splitter if you do have that. And I did have it. I still used a splitter for that specific 120 mil on the ASRock Challenger. So you can see I'm just laying everything out in such a way to where I can easily get to it. I point to the dust on that fan. And what I'm using, and I talked about this in many of my videos, is I'm using an old soft bristle toothbrush to clean out all the dust. This is something that you want to do every once in a while for your system, for your GPUs, for your computer game. You just clean it out of dust. Don't let dust build up to a point to where it's caked on, especially if you have pets, cats, or anything like that. You don't want all that dander and various fur and hairs to get stuck in your system, on your fan, especially because the hairs, once they wrap around the ball bearing or the bearing of the fan period, you start to hear a sound and start having issues. So just clean it out every once in a while. Soft bristle brush and a blower fan works out very well. Obviously, I don't clean up everything right now, so let's move on to putting the rest of the system together. So I'm just grabbing risers for the cards that I need, swapping some of them out. The GPU risers that you see there in my left hand has a specific way of clicking in. You got to make sure it clicks. Let me play that back for you so you can hear it click real quick. You heard that click? It's very important that you make sure on the GPU risers, especially that version, that it clicks correctly. The other risers will just have a little slot mechanism that slides forward and locks the GPU in place. But you just want to make sure that all of your GPUs are properly seated in their risers, because that can cause issues with connectivity, and it could be bad if your riser starts to draw power and it's not actually seated properly. You can actually start a fire. So all of this, you just need to take your time, double check your connection, double check your risers, double check everything, and definitely make sure that you're powering everything correctly. To me, the best way to power all of your GPUs is, as I mentioned in all of my videos, is a 6-pin connection. 6-pin risers, 6-pin to your GPUs, or 8-pin to your GPUs, whatever you got. That's why I like to mix ATX power supplies with server power supplies, but technically with parallel miners kits, you can run all of your rigs off of server power supplies. Just be mindful again that to utilize the 1200 watt power supply at its maximum potential, you're going to need a 240 or 220 volt, not 110 or 120. So now I'm grabbing the power supplies. Yeah, I'm grabbing it's the EVGA 850BQ, pretty good power supply. It's been running it ran in my main system for quite a while when I had my 7700K. And then obviously the 1200 watt power supply that I was just speaking about is helping out as well. Now, it's got a traditional breakout board, but we need to swap that over, and we'll do that in a moment. Look at all those wonderful cables. Also, I'm powering the fans in the back there, the up here fans with the SATA connection. So just got to make sure everything's disconnected, and then we're going to bring it on over to the new system. That cable running across my house, by the way, is gone now. I made a video on how to get rid of that because my wife was getting very upset, and I was tired of having wife aggro. So that cable is gone, and I do have wired connection using Hive on both my mining rigs, and I got a really good speeds, besides a reliable connection, really good speeds from the Asus RPAC 1900. If you want to check out that video, feel free to look it up in the channel. So right now I'm just game planning, right? Where am I going to put the power supply? Where do I want the power supply to be? And where do I want the server power supply to be? Because that's very important, because one side's going to have a few GPUs connected to the 850, and the other side's going to have the rest of pretty much everything else, all the other GPUs, risers, connections, whatever it is. When you power your risers, typically you want to power the riser and the GPU from the same power supply. You don't want to have the riser powering the GPU, or excuse me, the riser being powered by the ATX power supply, and then your server power supply powering the GPU. You really want them coming from the same one. So here we are grabbing the server power supply, standard breakout board. The only thing is, this is an old school one, so it doesn't have the power button to where you can just flip the switch and be done, which is why I switched it over to the more modern breakout board. So this is the Parallel Miners ZSX breakout board. Really good board. I'll have it linked in the description below. As you can see, it's got the 24 pin. It's got the CPU power. It's got fan headers. It's got everything you would need for your mining rig. And you can synchronize multiple 1200 watt PSUs and their breakout boards together with a particular cable. And Parallel Miner has information on that on their website if you want to check that out. That's actually how I was able to sync up, not this system, but the Nvidia system, because I used that old 6 GPU frame to add more Nvidia cards as well. And there's another 1200 watt power supply powering those cards, and I needed to sync the traditional breakout board with the ZSX breakout board. So cable management, look, it's not going to win any awards, especially for mining rigs. A lot of people have beautiful mining rigs, and they do very well in managing their cables and making it look good. Me, it's all about the go, not the show. I've always been one of those type of people, right? I can have a busted 240 It may not look as good. It has a black eye. The grill's a little bit busted. But if it goes and it's destroying cars and it's running a good ET, good 60 foot, I could care less about the looks. But looks are important too, and I know a lot of people like having cable managed. The OCD kicks in. So my OCD's kicking in right now. I'm trying to get it somewhat cable managed, but it's not the best. If you looked at my mining rig or any videos in my channel recently, you'll see the current setup that I have, and you see that it, honestly, it could be cable managed a little bit better. Zip ties would have helped out. I don't have any zip ties. Some LTT straps, Velcro straps would have helped out. But just, you want to do it as best as you can, and only make sure, like I'm disconnecting a SATA power from the ATX Powersupply because I'm not going to use it, right? I got enough SATA power to power my SSD and to power my fans, the up here fans on the system. But besides that, I don't need anything else. So there's 6 pin. Just remember, that's one entire strand, guys. So one entire strand on one 6 pin is only rated at 216. When you have the 8 pins, it's a little bit more. But the mathematics is very important. The math on what you're powering is very important. But I don't power any of my GPUs or risers with SATA, and it gives me that peace of mind. I never have to worry about it. I don't worry about my house catching on fire or anything like that. And you know, I can sleep peacefully knowing my family and I are safe, and I'm mining away, no problem. But yeah, ATX Powersupply. So far I got basically 3 8 pins that I can do something with, because I'm counting the entire strand. I'm not counting the fact that each strand has 2 6+2 pins. I'm just counting the entire strand. So you'll see that I only power maybe 2 GPUs with this one power supply. I could power a little bit more than that if I split it out, but I only safely power 2 GPUs and then go from there. So cable manage, and let's go ahead and move forward a little bit. So now I'm calculating where do I want to, like, how do I want to connect everything? Do I want to start from the left? Do I want to start from the right? And then I work my way backwards, right? So plugging in the, I believe that's the 6600 XT. Then I'm plugging in the Gigabyte card, which is super dusty on the backside there. And I'm just trying to route the cable as easily as possible. Again, not super cable managed, but just enough to where they're not conflicting with each other, they're not causing issues, and I, if I needed to do maintenance, can easily access it. Everything's already powered. Those 2 GPUs on the left are powered by the EVGA ATX Powersupply. You can see, again, I'm only splitting one strand, one power strand coming out of the power supply to one GPU / riser. I'm not doing multiple GPUs and multiple risers on a single strand. Now everything else is going to be connected via the server power supply. I probably don't have enough in this shot that you see right now to connect everything, so I will have to grab some more cables to power up everything. And that's exactly what I'm doing, and I'm calculating. But I'm trying to make sure that it's as close to cable management as possible, because this system is going to be stacked on top of the Nvidia system, and I don't want the cables to, you know, loop down or droop down into any fans or anything below it. So just kind of organizing it a little bit as best as you possibly can, and then you start from, I'm starting from the furthest one in, right? So I'm working my way from the left to the right. I'm starting from the furthest one in to go ahead and connect. This one's powering risers on 2 different cards, while the next cable would be, well, that one's powering the GPU, the next cable is going to power both risers, and then the following cable is going to just power the GPU itself. See? And to deepen the mines, I haven't had any issues. It's a 6-pin to dual 8-pin splitter, and I have never had any issues. Now, obviously, I need to connect up the riser, because right now the riser or the GPU is not powered or doesn't have the cables plugged in. It is a very hard stretch to do. You can see that cable is very stretched or strained. Be careful with that. You don't want to strain your cables too much. If you strain your cables too much, that can also cause a fire of some type. So just be a little bit careful. But I'm just plugging every single adapter, everything I got, little by little. I'm powering in the riser, or I'm plugging in the power for the riser because I didn't plug it in beforehand. Usually you want to do that beforehand. But the way these cables work, you can see there, it's a loop, and it's a very awkward loop. makes cable management a little bit weird, but yeah, this PowerColor is a 6-pin plus 8-pin, so I'm just looping that around, plugging everything up. So now all the splitters and all the cables are plugged in. It's just a matter of connecting all these server power supplies. Now when you push in on those 8 pins and 6 pins, just be a little bit careful, especially with the Gigabyte card on the Nvidia system. I noticed because they have that weird power arrangement where it's basically dual 8 pins that goes to these flat 8 pins on the inside, like it makes a 90-degree turn and goes in. I noticed those connectors push in because they're really just mounted to the chassis of the GPU. They're not actually connected to the power of the GPU itself. So when I was pushing really hard on it, it was going into the GPU, and you just want to be careful. You don't want to do that. You don't want to break anything. You don't want to snap off any SMDs, and you definitely don't want to break your power connector. But I only seen that on the Gigabyte cards. Everything else is, you know, these connectors are actually linked or soldered or directly connected to the GPU. Gigabyte was the only weird one that I bumped into. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, look up Gigabyte 3080 and both the Eagle and the other one, and you'll see that they got a really weird power connector where the 8 pins are going out, turning a 90, and then going to the actual PCB. I just plugged up the GPUs in the order in which I want them to be read on the motherboard. I need to get the fans off of this system and move it over to the 8 GPU frame. So we're going to do that now. The up here fans are relatively good. They're cheap as heck. The RPMs are very low, maybe 1,000 to 1,200. Nothing to write home about. On my Nvidia system, I got, you know, good fans that can run up to 3,000 RPM. I don't have any server grade fans, but it's definitely, you just need some type of airflow. Any airflow is better than no airflow, especially when you have the backside of these GPUs getting so hot because of flip chip designed GDDR6, 6X, whatever it may be. You just want some type of airflow to cool that back plate when you have the thermal pad sinking the heat away from the PCB and over to the back plate. Because I am not having to do this from scratch, what was really cool is I could just slide these fans out. They give me a little bit of a hard time. Slide these fans out. A little bit dusty. And then all I had to do was add to it. So I just disconnected one side of the fans, got 2 more up here fans, and added to it. So on the 6 GPU frame, it's only 5 120mm fans. On the 8 GPU frame, it's 7. So I just needed 2 more. Disconnected one side of the fans, got 2 more brackets. And these brackets, by the way, are 3D printable. There are ways online. I had a few people hit me up when they saw the frame back in the day, asking, you know, where do I get those brackets from? I mean, technically, you could just zip tie. Zip tie life is not. There's nothing wrong with it, but these brackets are 3D printable if you're interested in it. And then, of course, the up here system uses a proprietary hub. I don't really like it, but that's what controls your RGB. But it doesn't allow you to control any fan speeds or anything like that. Sorry, I'm blowing out the dust in the hub, but it just connects in. I think it's a 5-pin, to be honest. 5 or 6-pin, but don't quote me on it. But it's proprietary. You won't be able to use it with any other system unless you have the hub. A little bit stiff to get in there, but like I said, the up here fans get the job done. They look pretty cool with the RGB, but their airflow leaves something to be desired. Now for the hard part, trying to get these fans back onto the system in the form that it is. Because I like to build, even if you were building this fresh, this Vodaframe, Kingwin, whatever you got. And I think Kingwin's got an even better system because they got the bar, even on the newer Vodaframes, if you find them, they're just too expensive. So I wouldn't buy them for 100 plus. It's just one full bar. And obviously you can't see it, but there's, if you look very carefully, let me pause it for you real quick. So down in the bottom left here is a little nut, and that nut slides into the openings on these Vodaframes, and you got to leave it threaded enough to where it's grabbing onto the screw and doesn't fall off, but not thread it too much to where it can't slide down the slots on the actual frame, so that way when you start to tighten, it will lock into place. That's the biggest thing. But it was a little bit cumbersome to try to get that all in there, but I was able to, obviously, and that's the cooling aspect of this system. And I'm just tightening it down, making sure that it's making a good connection, that the locking nut is actually locking. Nothing too special, you're just attaching fans to a frame. Obviously, once I had this all done, I had to connect the SATA power from the hub to the ATX Powersupply, which, by the way, the Parallel Miner ZSX Breakout Board and kit does have a way to power, or it does provide you SATA power for like your hard drive and stuff like that. But I'm just using the ATX Powersupply to do it. Now I got the two systems together, and I just wanted to make sure that there's no wires hanging down, and this bar is actually going to allow me to secure each system together, or each frame together, for a little bit more stability. It's not something that I would say, you know, stack them 4 or 5 high, but you can at least stack them 2 high and be just fine. And I'm just getting it into position. Alright, so before I powered on the AMD system, I am powering everything via the 240 volt and my PDU, making sure that everything is nice and has good, clean power, more efficient power than you would with a standard home outlet. Just plugging in everything with the particular plugs or cables. I think it's C14. Don't quote me on that, but I'll have it linked down below. It's not the traditional power cables that you plug into a normal outlet, because you're connecting to the PDU, but that outlet type is very different. And I'm just powering up the ATX and Server Powersupply, and we'll show you the finished product. Alright, so there she is in all her glory. Everything's working. AMD system is mining away right above the Nvidia system, just keeping an eye on temps and everything. And it wasn't too much of a challenge, but this is a mining frame, and you may be doing something completely different. AMD's system is something that I wanted to do, but some people like to run mixed rigs. And you can see I even kept the 6 GPU frame on the right to add additional Nvidia GPUs, and I'm just running a cable along the backside there to connect to the other Nvidia system. Alright, so it's not a complete step-by-step situation, but if you follow me along in the video, it's really, mining is self-taught. Everything I've done so far in mining, I've learned on my own. If not, I researched and the community provided me information. There's plenty of guides on Reddit or on YouTube or through various means where people share information, and it should help you out in some form or fashion. The basis is you got to get the frame. That's what we did with this whole series. The frame, the foundation of your mining rig. Are you going to use a shelf? Are you going to use a milk crate? Are you going to use a dish rack? Whatever you can think of. You just need a foundation. Once you have your foundation, you want to securely mount the motherboard in some form or fashion. Make sure it's protected if it's a metal on metal situation. Then figure out your GPUs. How are you going to cleanly power those GPUs or safely power those GPUs? And then make sure that all your connections are good to go. When you're putting on risers, especially GPUrisers.com, just make sure it clicks, make sure it locks into place. Don't leave the riser hanging off the PCIe slot off by a little bit. That can cause issues. Make sure that everything is plugged in. Each riser by one, the by one connection, the smaller one, is plugged into its slot. I would power everything with 6 pins if you can. If you can't, I understand. Some GPUs, yes, you can get away with using a SATA to 6-pin adapter. Just be careful. There's a lot of power-hungry cards out there now, and that can cause issues. But that is just me building a mining rig, well, migrating a mining rig, a 6 GPU rig, to an 8 GPU rig. The process, the steps are pretty much the same. Just stop and pause wherever you need to, and I hope this video helps you out in some form or fashion. Besides that, do me a favor, on the way out, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe and notification bell to stay up to date with what's going on. Don't forget to check out the links in the description that help support the channel, to where, you know, some of the parts that are in this video, you can check them out down below. You can also check out dogelord.com, where you can get this shirt from the SerpentX collection. Get involved, mine crypto, very important. and much more. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Again, I hope this information helped you out, or this video or video series helped you out in some form or fashion. And I wish you nothing but the best. You have a wonderful day. Take care. I'll catch you next one.